History does not just manifest out of thin air. It is forged through silent battles and solitary tears. Picture the exact scene at the 2026 Madrid Tour event. The red dust is settling under the glaring Spanish sun. The massive crowd is on its feet and the noise is absolutely deafening. Alex Eala is standing on the baseline for match point. She is not just holding a professional tennis racket in her hands. She is physically carrying the deferred athletic dreams of 115 million Filipinos. Look closely at her face in that championship moment. The raw emotion flooding her eyes is not just about winning a major tennis tournament. It is the immediate release of years of crushing pressure. When she hit that final winning forehand down the line, she sent a shockwave across the entire globe. She proved beyond any doubt that a kid from Southeast Asia could completely dominate the absolute highest levels of professional tennis. The stadium erupted in pure chaos. The international commentators lost their minds. It was a victory so profound that it instantly reshaped the landscape of the WTA Tour. But the shiny silver trophy and the falling confetti hide a much darker and more painful truth. To truly feel the magnitude of this historic breakthrough, we have to strip away the current glamour. We have to rewind the clock. We must go back to the exact moment when the entire tennis world thought this beautiful dream was completely dead. We need to explore the dark chapters that nobody ever talks about. Imagine the sheer psychological weight of being labeled the savior of your national sports program before your 16th birthday. That was the daily reality for Alex. Most teenagers are worried about typical high school drama and hanging out with friends. Alex was actively dealing with the heavy expectations of an entire country. Every single time she stepped onto a practice court thousands of miles away from her home, the media scrutinized her every swing. When she packed her bags and moved across the world to train at the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy, it was framed as the ultimate fairy tale. It was supposed to be the golden ticket to automatic success. She had unlimited access to the best training facilities and elite professional coaching. She completely dominated the junior circuits. She captured multiple junior Grand Slam titles, and the global hype machine went into absolute overdrive. The narrative was absolutely perfect. The young prodigy was rising fast. The future was secure and the trophies were inevitable. But there is a brutal secret about professional tennis that the casual fans never see. The leap from dominating talented juniors to surviving on the main WTA Tour is an absolute bloodbath. Junior tennis is essentially a test of raw athletic potential. Professional tennis is a grueling physical war of attrition. Suddenly, she was no longer playing against other talented kids. She was facing fully grown women who hit the heavy yellow ball with terrifying pace and wicked spin. These seasoned veterans did not care about her shiny junior trophies. They only saw a young, inexperienced player with a massive target on her back. They ruthlessly exploited every tiny weakness in her developing game. The baseline balls came back deeper and much heavier. The physical rallies lasted twice as long. The raw physical demands skyrocketed to an unimaginable level. What worked perfectly against a 17-year-old opponent completely fell apart against a top 50 professional veteran who knew how to suffer on the court. The painful losses slowly started to creep in. The early first-round exits became more and more frequent. The bright stadium lights of the professional circuit began to fully expose the harsh reality of her brutal transition. Alex found herself trapped in a vicious cycle. The enthusiastic fans back home were still eagerly demanding major championships, but the reality on the European courts was a deeply painful learning curve. She was playing in completely empty stadiums at lower-level tournaments, just desperately trying to scrape together a few ranking points. You really have to understand how deeply lonely that specific situation feels. You are traveling the world living out of identical suitcases and dealing with the sharp sting of defeat completely alone in a quiet hotel room. Your entire nation actively expects you to be a flawless superstar, but you are struggling to win a single set against opponents nobody has ever even heard of. That golden prodigy label quickly started to feel like a heavy iron chain wrapped tightly around her neck. The nasty media whispers slowly began to circulate. Skeptical critics started to wonder if she had simply peaked too early. Was she just another overhyped junior phenomenon who could not handle the physical demands of the big leagues? Every missed forehand and every single double fault was magnified 1,000 times. The mental pressure was no longer just about winning matches. It was a desperate daily fight to prove she actually belonged on that court. This specific phase is the exact breaking point for 90% of young, talented athletes. The harsh transition completely breaks their fighting spirit. They simply cannot handle the constant, brutal losing after experiencing years of effortless winning. Alex was standing right on the edge of that exact same dangerous cliff. She was giving absolutely everything she had inside her, but the desired results were just not materializing. The massive gap between her current playing level and the top 10 of the WTA felt like an impossible ocean to cross. If you have ever felt like you were giving your absolute best effort in life and still falling painfully short, you know exactly how crushing this dark phase truly is. Connect with us and subscribe right now so we can navigate these intense emotional depths together, because understanding this profound struggle is the only way to truly appreciate the massive plot twist that is coming next. The real test of her character was only just beginning. Every single hero origin story has a hidden chapter soaked in pure darkness that they never want to read aloud. For Alex, that specific chapter violently ripped open right before the start of the 2026 season. The occasional sporting losses suddenly snowballed into a crushing 12-match losing streak. The harsh, brutal reality of the professional tour was actively stripping away her confidence layer by layer. The sports media ecosystem can be incredibly cruel when a rising star suddenly begins to fall from grace. Several prominent tennis analysts went on national television and openly declared that her career was essentially over before it really even began. They stated she was just another undersized junior champion who completely lacked the raw physical firepower to survive against the elite top 50. Those specific words cut much deeper than any physical sports injury ever could. Imagine hearing respected sports pundits casually dismiss your entire life mission while you are sitting completely alone in a cheap European hotel room nursing a badly sprained ankle. The daily isolation was completely suffocating. She was navigating 14-hour international flights entirely alone. She was staring at hotel ceilings at 3 in the morning, desperately trying to figure out why her once lethal ground strokes were suddenly landing 2 feet past the baseline. She dropped completely out of the top 200 global rankings in a matter of months. The lucrative corporate sponsorship deals began to quietly disappear overnight. The absolute silence from the media after a brutal straight-set loss is actually far more terrifying than any loud public criticism. It loudly signals that people have simply stopped caring. It signals that the world has completely given up on you. During the bleak winter months of late 2025, the immense physical toll finally matched the deep mental exhaustion. A persistent, agonizing shoulder issue made her first serve a complete defensive liability. She was literally stepping onto the red clay courts knowing she had a massive target on her back and absolutely zero offensive weapons to defend herself. Professional opponents across the net could physically smell the fear and the total lack of confidence. They ruthlessly punished her weak second serves with terrifying baseline aggression. She was not just losing simple tennis matches anymore. She was actively losing her entire identity as a dominant, fierce competitor. Her inner fighting spirit was being crushed under the immense weight of unfulfilled national expectations from the Philippines. You could clearly see the deep, agonizing exhaustion in her eyes during the quick changeovers. The vibrant, explosive spark that heavily defined her junior career was completely gone. She looked exactly like a faded ghost haunting her own professional matches. This specific phase is the ultimate crossroads where 90% of talented athletes completely break down. They simply cannot handle the constant brutal losing after experiencing years of effortless teenage winning. Alex was standing right on the very edge of that exact same dangerous cliff. She was giving absolutely everything she had inside her soul, but the desired tournament results were simply not materializing. The massive skill gap between her current playing level and the top 10 of the world felt like an impossible dark ocean to cross. This was the darkest timeline. The entire tennis world had completely written her off as a failed experimental project and moved their shiny cameras to the next young sensation. But what exactly happens when you push a true resilient champion into a dark corner with absolutely nothing left to lose? What is the exact sequence of technical events that triggers a miraculous resurrection from the ashes of a completely shattered career? Her next bold strategic move did not just salvage her fading professional trajectory. It actively set the grand stage to completely rewrite the entire history of Asian professional tennis. True athletic evolution never happens under the bright, flashy lights of a packed stadium. It is violently forged in absolute silence during agonizing hours of invisible suffering. Weeks before the major European clay court swing officially began, Alex completely vanished from the public eye. She locked herself inside an intense private training block deep in the mountains of Spain. The desperate ranking situation required a radically extreme solution. The old familiar game plan was completely dead and buried. She desperately needed to build an entirely new offensive weapon from the absolute ground up. The main coaching focus was not just about hitting the yellow ball harder, it was a complete biomechanical reconstruction of her primary offensive tactical tools. Her elite coaching team recognized a critical, fatal flaw. Her flat, aggressive forehand was way too erratic against heavy professional pace. They spent 8 grueling hours a day completely breaking down her swing path. They forced her to generate massive looping topspin by whipping the racket head under the ball with violent, sudden acceleration. The new goal was to push the heavy ball deep into the dusty corners and force her strong opponents far behind the baseline. They also completely overhauled her serving stance to fix the shoulder pain. They changed her toss mechanics to guarantee a much higher first serve percentage under extreme pressure. But the physical technical changes were only half of the required championship equation. The most dangerous transformation happened entirely inside her own mind. She had spent the last 2 painful years playing completely out of fear. She was playing highly defensive tennis, just trying desperately not to lose the point. The brand new mentality was entirely predatory in nature. She was no longer walking out there to simply survive the round. She was stepping onto the red dirt to hunt. This massive psychological shift from vulnerable prey to apex predator completely changed her physical court presence. I am genuinely curious if any of you eagle-eyed tennis fanatics actually noticed this massive technical shift during her early warm-up tournaments. Did you spot the altered grip and the much heavier topspin on her forehand before the mainstream media finally caught on? Drop your detailed tactical observations down in the comments right now, because I really want to know who the true tennis experts are in this community. Recognizing these subtle mechanical tweaks is exactly what separates the casual passing viewers from the real dedicated students of the game. The first real brutal test of this completely rebuilt tennis machine happened at a small challenger event right before the Madrid Open. It was a punishing 3-hour physical marathon against a heavily favored top 50 veteran. Down a crucial break of serve in the final deciding set, the old Alex would have easily crumbled under the immense, suffocating pressure. She would have hit a safe weak ball and just waited for an unforced error. But the brand new upgraded Alex stepped aggressively inside the baseline. She unleashed a violently heavy forehand right down the line to save match point. The sheer explosive sound of the racket whip echoed through the tiny quiet venue like a sudden gunshot. The physical energy spike in that exact cinematic moment was absolutely electric. You could actually see her roar with pure primal aggression as the heavy ball perfectly painted the white chalk line. The fast jump cuts and her explosive footwork were suddenly back. She broke serve immediately and completely steamrolled through the final tense tiebreak. That singular legendary match point was the exact catalyst for the pure madness that was about to follow. The heavy, invisible mental chains of national pressure finally snapped in half. The haunting daily doubts were instantly silenced by the deafening sound of a pure, aggressive ball strike. Armed with a terrifying new tactical weapon and an absolutely unbreakable hardened mindset, Alex did not travel to the prestigious Madrid Open just to quietly participate or defend a few minor ranking points. She marched straight into that legendary clay court facility as an entirely different, terrifying species of competitor. The global tennis world was completely asleep and entirely unaware of the monstrous game she was about to unleash upon the top 10 ranked players. How exactly does a former teenage prodigy violently dismantle the most feared veterans on the entire tour in less than 2 weeks? From the very first baseline rally in the opening round at Madrid, something had clearly changed. The previous hesitation was completely gone. In its place was a cold, calculated aggression that suffocated her opponents. She faced the number 4 seed in the second round and completely dismantled her in just 68 minutes. She won 82% of her first serve points and hit 24 clean winners. The global commentators were absolutely stunned. They kept looking down at their stat sheets in pure disbelief. Who is this terrifying player wearing the colors of the Philippines? The momentum shifted like a massive tidal wave. With every single victory, the crowds around her outside courts grew exponentially larger. By the quarterfinals, she was playing on the main stadium court under the bright lights. She was moving with a fluid, explosive grace that made the heavy red clay look like a fast hard court. The international broadcasters finally changed their entire tone. They stopped talking about her past struggles and started analyzing her current absolute dominance. The physical conditioning work she did in the dark mountains of Spain was finally paying massive dividends on the court. While her opponents were bending over and gasping for air between points, Alex looked incredibly fresh and totally composed. Her lungs were burning, but her face showed absolutely zero emotion. She was a complete machine, built entirely for clay court destruction. The local Spanish fans, who are notoriously demanding when it comes to clay court tennis, started chanting her name during the changeovers. They recognized the supreme fighting spirit that their own national heroes always display. But here's the exclusive tactical secret that the mainstream sports networks completely missed. If you look closely at the advanced tracking data from her semifinal match, you will see something truly insane. The average topspin revolution rate on the WTA Tour is around 2,200 revolutions per minute. During her run at Madrid, the forehand of Alex was consistently clocking in at an astonishing 2,800 revolutions per minute. She was generating a heavy, violent spin that literally kicked the ball up to the shoulder height of her opponents. The official tournament heat map showed her striking the ball a full meter closer to the baseline than the tournament average. She was not just winning on pure luck or raw emotion. She was mathematically suffocating the best players in the world using elite tennis intelligence and brutal court geometry. This was a tactical masterclass unfolding in real time. The top 10 ranked players across the net looked completely lost and completely exhausted. They were constantly pushed back into the deep corners of the court, just desperately trying to survive the relentless, heavy baseline bombardment. Alex was stepping inside the court and taking the ball incredibly early. She was stealing precious fractions of a second away from the reaction time of her opponents. This specific style of aggressive baseline positioning requires supreme confidence and absolutely flawless footwork. It is the exact type of fearless championship tennis that you usually only see from seasoned veterans who have already secured multiple Grand Slam titles. Watching a young player execute this complex tactical system on the biggest clay court stage in the world was simply breathtaking. The final match was not even a close contest. She unleashed a blistering passing shot on championship point and immediately dropped to her knees in the red dust. The roar of the Spanish crowd was completely deafening. The match point did not just bring her the biggest title of her professional career. The shockwave from that single, violent racket whip broke far beyond the city limits of Madrid and echoed all the way back to her home country. What exactly does a victory of this massive magnitude mean for the future of the sport? The historic run of Alex Eala at the Madrid Open is not just a brilliant individual milestone, it is a massive seismic shift for the entire landscape of Southeast Asian professional tennis. For decades, the global tennis establishment quietly believed that athletes from this specific region lacked the raw physical strength to dominate the grueling WTA Tour. They said the players were too small and the modern game was simply too powerful. Alex completely shattered that archaic stereotype into a million tiny pieces. When she lifted that massive silver trophy, she proved that elite tennis IQ and a hardened mental framework can absolutely conquer pure physical brute force. Just imagine the millions of young kids waking up in Manila right now. They are staring at their television screens and finally seeing a true global champion who looks exactly like them. She is actively proving that an Asian athlete can step onto the most prestigious courts in the world and absolutely dictate the terms of the match. This monumental victory completely redefines what is actually possible for athletes coming from smaller tennis nations. The rigid, traditional pathways to professional success have been completely disrupted. You do not necessarily need to be born in Eastern Europe or the United States to build a completely dominant athletic career. You just need an unbelievable work ethic and the mental toughness to survive the darkest valleys of the sport. Alex Eala is the living, breathing proof of that beautiful concept. The ultimate glass ceiling has been completely shattered. The dark days of struggling through minor challenger events are officially over. She has firmly established herself as a terrifying threat to win any major tournament she enters. The major sports clothing brands and elite corporate sponsors who silently walked away during her losing streak are now frantically calling her management team. But the true victory is far deeper than lucrative financial endorsements or shiny global rankings. The heavy burden of national pressure has finally transformed into the ultimate source of her competitive power. She no longer carries the massive weight of the Philippines as a heavy, suffocating anchor. She now wields that immense national pride as an impenetrable shield against adversity. The massive wall of doubt has finally collapsed, but this epic journey of conquest is really just getting started. The entire tennis world is now carefully watching her every single move. The top coaches are aggressively studying her game tape, just trying to figure out how to stop this unstoppable force. Which historic Grand Slam arena do you think will be the exact location where she claims her next major championship? Drop your specific tournament predictions in the comments below because the upcoming grass court season is going to be wildly unpredictable. Join our community right now so you do not miss our upcoming deep dive into her highly anticipated Wimbledon strategy.